History books tell us civilizations rose through kings and conquests, but what if the truth was far more mysterious? Behind every empire, beneath each grand monument, whispers of secret societies echo through time. These weren't just clubs meeting in shadowy corners. They were invisible hands sculpting the course of human destiny. The pyramids aligned with celestial precision, Greek philosophers speaking of hidden truths, temples built with knowledge that defies their era, all point to something extraordinary at work. Tonight, we follow the breadcrumbs left by these elusive groups, deciphering their coded messages in stone and scroll. You're about to see ancient history not as a series of accidents, but as a carefully orchestrated design, one where the real architects deliberately erased their fingerprints. The deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. The past we think we know is merely the surface, and what lies beneath will redefine your understanding of human civilization itself. Some of the earliest whispers of hidden brotherhoods come from the sands of ancient Egypt, where mystery schools thrived in the shadows of the pyramids. Picture this, a young initiate led through torch-lit corridors, swearing oaths under the watchful eyes of hooded priests. These weren't just religious ceremonies, they were carefully guarded systems of mathematics, astronomy, and medicine so advanced that even modern scholars debate their origins. The Mesopotamian Brotherhood of the Snake took a different approach, weaving their influence into the very fabric of early politics. Clay tablets suggest they advised kings, shaped laws, and held secrets about the cosmos that would make your skin crawl. Why all the secrecy? Imagine living in a world where knowledge was power, real, tangible power that could build empires or destroy them. For these early societies, concealment wasn't about mystique, it was survival. A single misplaced scroll could mean the difference between enlightenment and chaos. And here's what's chilling, their methods still echo today. The rituals, the symbols, even the way they passed down wisdom through coded myths and allegories sound familiar. That's because modern secret societies inherited their playbook directly from these ancient architects. The deeper question isn't just what they knew, but who they were protecting it from. Stumbling through the darkened halls of an Egyptian temple, initiates faced more than just physical tests. They endured a transformation of the mind. The mystery schools of ancient Egypt weren't merely classrooms, they were portals to understanding the universe itself. At their heart stood figures like Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, who legend says inscribed the secrets of creation onto emerald tablets. His human counterpart, Hermes Trismegistus, became so shrouded in myth that even scholars debate whether he was a man, a god, or something in between. What made these teachings so explosive? Picture a civilization where geometry could predict floods, where medicine blended with magic to heal the body and soul, where star charts held the keys to both earthly power and cosmic truths. The initiates didn't just memorize formulas, they learned to wield knowledge as a living force. When a priest calculated the perfect angle for a pyramid, they weren't just stacking stones, they were anchoring divine energy into the earth. Yet this wisdom came with razor-sharp warnings. Scrolls found in hidden crypts speak of the unworthy being struck blind for glimpsing sacred symbols. The famous emerald tablet's first line, "as above, so below," wasn't poetic philosophy but a dangerous equation. Get it right and you could align your will with the universe. Get it wrong and the consequences were said to be catastrophic. The school's influence bled far beyond temple walls. Greek luminaries like Pythagoras and Plato allegedly studied under Egyptian masters, carrying fragments of this knowledge westward. Alchemists in medieval Europe obsessed over Hermetic texts, convinced they held recipes for turning lead into gold, though the real transformation may have always been about the seeker, not the metal. Even today, secretive orders trace their rituals back to these Nile Valley sanctuaries. What's most haunting isn't what we've uncovered, but what remains just out of reach. The pyramids still guard mathematical riddles we've yet to solve. Papyrus fragments allude to the weighing of the heart ceremony. Was this metaphor or a lost technology for measuring the soul? As we follow the trail of these teachings into Greece and beyond, one pattern emerges. Every civilization that touched this knowledge either soared to brilliance or collapsed under its weight. The real secret may be that some truths aren't just hidden but actively resisted being found. The ancient groves of Eleusis held secrets so powerful that for nearly 2,000 years, not a single participant dared break their oath, even with death's threat removed. Among olive trees and torchlit processions, Greece's most luminous minds from Socrates to Cicero underwent rituals that promised not just wisdom, but an actual vision of the afterlife. Unlike Egypt's mathematical precision or Mesopotamia's political cunning, the Eleusinian Mysteries wielded a different kind of power, raw, emotional transcendence. At the heart of these rites lay the myth of Demeter and Persephone, a story of loss, rebirth, and the fragile boundary between life and death. But here's what most retellings miss: the initiates didn't just hear the tale. They lived it through a carefully orchestrated blend of sacred dramas, rhythmic chanting, and a mysterious potion called kykeon. Participants didn't merely learn about the underworld, they stood at its threshold. Modern researchers speculate the brew contained ergot, a fungus with psychedelic properties, turning the temple into what we'd now call a controlled psychedelic experience. The genius of Eleusis wasn't in its secrecy, but in its psychological mastery. Where other mystery schools emphasized intellectual enlightenment, the Greeks understood that true transformation required the body and senses. Imagine walking through a pitch-black labyrinth, only to emerge into a cavern where actors reenacted Persephone's return, not as spectators, but as part of the story itself. This wasn't theater, it was immersive technology for the soul. And the impact, those who underwent the rites claimed they lost all fear of dying. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, hardened by war and politics, still spoke of his initiation as the defining moment of his life. The secret's potency kept it intact longer than most empires until Christian Rome finally dismantled the sanctuary in the 4th century. Yet the legacy lived on. Hidden symbols in Renaissance art, the structure of Masonic rituals, even modern psychotherapy's use of guided visualization, each carries faint echoes of Eleusis. What makes these mysteries endure in our imagination isn't just their secrecy, but their radical promise that ordinary people could touch the divine, not through years of study, but in a single, shattering night. As we move forward to Rome's underground cults, keep this question in mind: when knowledge becomes too dangerous to write down, does it vanish or simply take new shapes? Beneath the sun-drenched cliffs of ancient Croton, a secret brotherhood gathered in hushed reverence not for gods or kings, but for numbers. The Pythagorean Brotherhood didn't just study mathematics, they worshipped it as divine language, convinced that geometric shapes and ratios held the universe's hidden blueprint. Imagine a world where the flicker of a candle's flame could be measured in perfect fractions, where musical harmonies resonated with planetary orbits, and where speaking the wrong truth could get you killed. This wasn't just a school, it was a revolution cloaked in secrecy. Pythagoras himself remains an enigma, part philosopher, part cult leader, with followers who swore oaths of silence and lived by bizarre rules. Beans were forbidden, hair and nails were left uncut, and every discovery was treated as sacred doctrine. Their breakthroughs were staggering: the famous theorem linking a triangle's sides, the realization that musical notes followed mathematical ratios, even early hints of a heliocentric solar system. But here's what history books rarely mention: these weren't just academic exercises. The Brotherhood believed mastering these patterns could unlock supernatural abilities, from healing the sick to predicting eclipses with eerie precision. Yet their greatest discovery also shattered their unity. When one member, Hippasus, proved the existence of irrational numbers, values that defied perfect fractions, legend claims he was thrown overboard for blaspheming their divine math. Whether true or myth, the message was clear. Some truths were too dangerous to share. This tension between enlightenment and control defined their legacy. While their geometric principles built cathedrals millennia later, their obsession with secrecy became a blueprint for power. Traces of their influence lurk everywhere, from Masonic rituals echoing their initiation, right to modern physicists chasing a theory of everything in the same numerical patterns. Even the word cosmos, which Pythagoras coined, still defines our search for universal order. But their story forces us to ask, when does the pursuit of knowledge become a quest for control? As we turn to Rome's shadowy cults, remember, the most enduring secrets aren't just hidden, they're whispered in numbers, carved in stone, and sometimes written in blood. Beneath the streets of Rome, where the roar of chariots faded to echoes, men in blood-stained tunics crawled through torchlit tunnels, not as fugitives, but as initiates of the most enigmatic brotherhood of antiquity. The Cult of Mithras didn't just worship in secret, they built their sanctuaries underneath the world, carving temples into the earth like inverse cathedrals. Here, soldiers and merchants knelt before a chilling icon, Mithras plunging his dagger into a cosmic bull, an act they believed released the very substance of creation. This wasn't faith as we know it today. Initiates endured trials that would make modern horror films seem tame, blindfolded, starved, drenched in the blood of ritual sacrifices. 7 ranks awaited them, each named after celestial protectors: the raven, the bridegroom, even the Persian-inspired father of fathers. With every promotion, new cosmic secrets unfolded. The alignment of planets as a divine ladder, the bull's blood as a metaphor for spiritual rebirth. Archaeologists still puzzle over their artifacts, a zodiac wheel fused with sword motifs, frescoes of Mithras sharing a banquet with the sun god. The parallels to early Christianity are impossible to ignore. Both promised salvation through symbolic blood, both baptized followers, and both faced Roman persecution. Some historians argue the cult's imagery, like Mithras born from a rock on December 25th, directly influenced Christian symbolism. Others insist they were bitter rivals competing for the souls of legionnaires. The truth may be stranger. These underground temples weren't just religious spaces, but clandestine support networks where soldiers bound by oath could trust each other across empire's vast frontiers. So why did this formidable cult collapse? Exclusivity became its undoing. Women were forbidden. Slaves could only join the lowest ranks. While Christianity spread like wildfire through homes and markets, Mithraism's insistence on secrecy and male purity stifled its reach. When Constantine converted Rome, these hidden chambers weren't destroyed, they were simply abandoned, their rituals fading like smoke from extinguished torches. Yet their legacy lingers. The Vatican sits atop what was once a Mithraeum. The phrase, "God is light," echoes their core teaching. And in London's financial district, workers pass a reconstructed temple beneath Bloomberg's offices, a reminder that even the mightiest empires are built over forgotten worlds. As we turn eastward to the Silk Road, keep this in mind. Sometimes the most powerful ideas aren't those that conquer, but those that vanished only to resurface in pieces we're still struggling to reassemble. While the Roman legions marched across Europe with swords and scrolls, another power operated in the misty groves of ancient Gaul and Britain, one that wielded neither weapon nor pen, yet commanded absolute authority. The Druids stood at the heart of Celtic civilization, not as robed mystics chanting spells, but as judges, scientists, and political advisors who could halt battles with a single word. Their refusal to commit knowledge to writing wasn't primitive superstition. It was a deliberate strategy to concentrate power. Imagine a world where legal precedents, medicinal recipes, and astronomical calculations existed solely in the minds of a select few, transmitted through 20 years of rigorous memorization. This wasn't just education, it was intellectual monopoly perfected. Roman accounts paint a contradictory picture, on one hand praising their philosophical depth, on another sensationalizing their rituals. Caesar's description of wicker men filled with burning prisoners may have been wartime propaganda, but archaeology confirms darker truths. Bog bodies across Europe show signs of ritualistic violence, one man's stomach still preserved with a last meal of mistletoe pollen, a plant sacred to the Druids. Yet their true brilliance lay elsewhere. Their lunar calendar, reconstructed from scattered metal fragments, proves they predicted eclipses with precision rivaling Babylon. Their judicial system, where disputes were settled through intricate poetic recitations, kept Celtic tribes united without centralized rule. Rome's brutal purge of the Druids in the 1st century reveals more about empire than religion. When Suetonius raided their sanctuary on Anglesey, he wasn't just destroying priests, he was eliminating a rival intelligence network. The Celts' resistance leaders often emerged from Druidic training, their minds weaponized with history, rhetoric, and knowledge of Roman weaknesses. In extinguishing them, Rome didn't just erase a priesthood, it severed an unbroken oral tradition stretching back to the Bronze Age. Yet whispers of their wisdom survive. Medieval Irish manuscripts hint at surviving Druidic families adapting as Christian scribes. Modern pagans reconstruct their rituals through folklore's fractured mirror, from solstice bonfires to oath swearing on sacred oaks. Most haunting are the parallels between their oral knowledge systems and today's encrypted data, both designed to exclude outsiders while preserving purity of information. The Druids' greatest lesson might be this: when you make memory your fortress, its walls collapse only when the last mind falls silent. Now, as we journey further east, watch how another secret society chose a different path, not resisting empire but infiltrating it from within. Along the stark cliffs of Qumran, where the Dead Sea's salt-crusted shores meet the relentless desert, a community of white-robed figures moved like ghosts between clay jars and parchment. The Essenes weren't just another religious sect, they were a living time capsule, preserving knowledge they believed would outlast the coming storm. While Jerusalem's temple elite jostled for power, these ascetics perfected a startlingly precise solar calendar, copied sacred texts with near-fanatical accuracy, and sealed their most explosive writings in caves as if preparing a message for the future. What set them apart wasn't just their isolation, but their conviction that they alone held the truth. Ritual baths before meals, strict prohibitions against spitting or interrupting speakers, communal ownership of all property, these weren't arbitrary rules. They were a survival manual for what the Essenes called the final war between light and darkness. Their Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered by a Bedouin shepherd in 1947, read like a manifesto for the apocalypse, cryptic battle plans between the Sons of Light and Sons of Darkness, references to a mysterious teacher of righteousness, even a treasure map to lost temple artifacts. The real controversy lies in their potential ties to familiar biblical figures. Some scholars point to John the Baptist's ascetic lifestyle and wilderness preaching as eerily Essene-like. Fragments mentioning a messianic figure wounded by his enemies fuel speculation about connections to early Christianity, though no direct link to Jesus has been proven. What's undeniable is their radical response to crisis. When Roman oppression and religious corruption reached a boiling point, the Essenes didn't revolt or compromise. They withdrew, creating a parallel society so disciplined that even Pliny the Elder marveled at their celibate endurance. Their legacy forces us to reconsider what secrecy truly means. Unlike shadowy cults whispering in backrooms, the Essenes hid in plain sight. their scrolls buried not to hoard knowledge, but to preserve it for a world they believed would need it most. The pattern repeats through history. When institutions fail, alternatives emerge, sometimes as quiet as scribes in a desert, sometimes as loud as revolution. As we move forward into medieval Europe, watch how secret societies adapted this playbook for an age of knights and inquisitors, proving that the human hunger for hidden truths transcends any era. On the shores of Lake Merotes, where the Nile's waters shimmer under the Egyptian sun, a quiet community of healers and scholars lived in stark contrast to the chaos of Alexandria. The Therapeuti, whose name literally means healers or servants, weren't just another religious sect. They were pioneers of a radical idea that the path to divine wisdom required both rigorous study and transcendent experience. Where the Essenes prepared for apocalyptic war, these mystics sought inner peace through a harmony of intellect and ecstasy. Philo of Alexandria, our primary source on them, paints a portrait that feels startlingly modern. Their settlements weren't isolated hermitages but structured communities where men and women lived separately yet equally, dedicating mornings to solitary study of sacred texts and afternoons to communal singing and dance. Their rituals reached a crescendo during all-night vigils, where rhythmic movement and chanting induced trance states practices that wouldn't feel out of place in today's therapeutic retreats. The parallels to early Christian monasticism are undeniable. Shared meals of bread and spring water, renunciation of material wealth, even their white robes foreshadowing later monastic habits. Yet what truly set them apart was their concept of healing. Unlike Greek physicians who focused solely on the body, or temple priests who appealed to gods for cures, the Therapeuti saw illness as a disruption of the soul's harmony. Their treatments blended herbal remedies with meditation, psalmody, and dream interpretation, a holistic approach modern medicine is only now rediscovering. Fragments of their writings suggest they mapped the human body not just anatomically, but as a network of spiritual energies, anticipating concepts like chakras by centuries. The mystery isn't whether they influenced later traditions, but why they vanished so completely. Alexandria's great library, just miles from their enclaves, might hold clues. Scrolls lost to fire could have contained their teachings, leaving only Philo's account as a faint echo. Or perhaps their legacy survives invisibly, in the cadence of Gregorian chants, the rhythm of monastic daily offices, even the quiet introspection of modern psychotherapy. As we turn toward the Silk Road, keep this question in mind. When a society's practices are too subtle for stone inscriptions or battle records, does their disappearance mean failure, or a success so profound it became woven into the fabric of civilization itself? The next chapter takes us where secret knowledge didn't hide in caves or communes, but walked openly, disguised as trade. Amid the mist-shrouded peaks of China's sacred mountains and the gilded halls of its imperial courts, whispers persist of a shadow lineage far older than any dynasty, the Jiuzu or 9 families. While European secret societies schemed in candlelit cellars, these alleged puppet masters operated in daylight, their influence woven into the very fabric of Chinese statecraft. Imagine a world where court astrologers could alter an emperor's decree based on celestial patterns, where alchemists held the keys to both immortality and economic stability, and where a single scroll like the Huinanzi served as both philosophical treatise and political playbook. What set these families apart wasn't mere secrecy, but their unparalleled fusion of esoteric knowledge and administrative genius. Where Western traditions often prized individual enlightenment or political subversion, the 9 families, if they existed, embodied a uniquely Eastern ideal, harmony as power. The Huinanzi's chapters reveal this duality, blending star charts with tax policies, herbal remedies with military tactics, a passage on governing by non-action, might seem like mystical Taoism until you realize it's also a manual for destabilizing rival factions without overt conflict. The tantalizing ambiguity lies in their legacy. Were they real bloodlines or a metaphor for the Taoist principle that true control requires invisibility? Historical records mention imperial advisors like Lai Shaojun, who supposedly extended Emperor Wu's life with alchemical elixirs while discreetly guiding state reforms. The family's alleged domains astrology, metallurgy, agriculture hint at a startling possibility that China's famed bureaucratic efficiency may have been secretly steered by initiates who viewed statecraft as alchemy on a grand scale. Geography offers a crucial clue to their distinctiveness. Isolated by deserts and mountains, China's civilization developed with fewer external threats than the Mediterranean world, allowing its secret traditions to focus less on defense and more on seamless integration. A Roman cult might plot against emperors, but the 9 families allegedly sought to perfect them, believing cosmic and social order were inseparable. As we trace this thread toward medieval Europe's guilds and Kabbalists, consider how terrain shaped secrecy itself. River valleys bred collaborative mystics, while fractured continents fostered competitive conspiracies. The real lesson of the 9 families isn't just about hidden rulers, but about how cultures encode their deepest values into the very structure of knowledge, whether carved in stone or whispered between generations. High in the thin air of the Himalayas, where snow leopards tread silently across frozen passes, a legend persists not carved in stone or written on parchment, but passed breath to breathe for thousands of years. The Saptarishi, or 7 sages, are said to walk among us even now, their ageless wisdom woven into the very pillars of Hindu civilization. Unlike shadowy cabals or militant brotherhoods, these luminous figures embody a different kind of secrecy, one not of concealment but of sublime patience. Ancient texts describe them as the mind-born sons of Brahma, cosmic architects who gifted humanity with everything from Ayurvedic medicine to the sacred syllables of Sanskrit itself. Look up at the constellation Ursa Major and you're tracing their celestial blueprint. Hindu astronomers mapped these 7 stars as the Saptarishi's eternal abode, a celestial council chamber where they observe the unfolding of time itself. But here's where myth tingles with unsettling plausibility. The Vishnu Purana claims they reappear in every epoch Manvantara, subtly steering civilization's rebirth after each cataclysm. Whether this is metaphor or coded history, the ripple effects are undeniable. The Charaka Samhita, a foundational medical text, attributes its surgical precision to sage Atri's revelations. The Arthashastra, a manual of statecraft rivaling Machiavelli, traces its ruthless strategies to Bharadvaja's teachings. The real enigma lies in the whispers from remote Himalayan monasteries. Pilgrims and explorers alike speak of encounters with ascetics whose knowledge defies time. Men who recite verses from lost scriptures, predict geopolitical shifts with eerie accuracy, or heal with herbs science hasn't yet classified. Are these the Saptarishi's proxies or merely heirs to an unbroken oral tradition? India's Gurukula system, where disciples memorize entire Vedas through rhythmic recitation, proves how precisely knowledge can survive millennia without writing. Yet the most compelling clue might lie beyond religion. Modern physicists note startling parallels between Vedic descriptions of reality's fabric and quantum field theory. The Rig Veda's cryptic line, "Truth is one, though the wise call it by many names," could just as easily describe unified field equations. Whether the Saptarishi were flesh and blood scholars or allegories for cosmic principles, their legacy challenges our linear view of progress. Some truths, it seems, aren't discovered but remembered, whispered across ages by voices that never truly fade. Now, as we cross the Pacific, watch how these themes echo in the jungles of the Americas, where another culture spoke of sky-born sages bearing gifts, not in scrolls or stars, but in the very plants that sustained their civilizations. Deep in the emerald heart of the Yucatan jungle, where howler monkeys shatter the silence at dawn, stone temples whisper of a brotherhood that saw time itself as a living entity. The Maya Balamob, the Jaguar priests, weren't mere stargazers. They were temporal architects, slicing existence into precise cycles with a sophistication that still stuns mathematicians. While Europe stumbled through the Dark Ages, these scholars tracked Venus' orbit to within 2 hours per century, aligned pyramids to solstice shadows, and etched prophecies about epochs we've only just lived through. What set them apart wasn't just their celestial calculations, but their brutal intimacy with the sacred. Surviving murals at Calakmul reveal initiates clad in jaguar pelts, their pupils dilated from balshay, a hallucinogenic brew, as they communed with the Wayab spirit companions. Ritual bloodletting from tongues and genitals wasn't mere sacrifice, it was a portal. When a priestess pulled a thorned rope through her tongue, the resulting vision supposedly unlocked future-piercing clarity. Modern researchers found traces of scopolamine, a potent visionary compound, in ceremonial vessels, suggesting these weren't just symbolic acts but carefully engineered technologies of consciousness. Then came the Spanish auto-da face, the bonfires of knowledge. Bishop Diego de Landa's 1662 burning of thousands of codices wasn't just cultural vandalism, it was a targeted strike against the Jaguar priests' predictive systems. Only 4 Maya books survived, one being the Dresden Codex, which contains astronomical tables so precise they could still predict eclipses today. But here's the chilling twist: their most famous end date, December 21, 2012, wasn't about apocalypse. It marked the completion of a Biakton, a 144,000-day cycle after which their long count calendar simply reset, like an odometer rolling over. The real mystery isn't whether they foresaw our era, but how. Without telescopes or computers, their calculations required generations of unbroken observation, a feat only possible through clandestine knowledge networks. Recent LiDAR scans reveal entire cities beneath jungle canopies, hinting at a scholarly infrastructure far vaster than we knew. As we turn to medieval Europe's vault keepers, consider this: when flames consume books, do the ideas truly die? Or do they retreat into the cracks of history, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge? In the hushed chambers of Egypt's temples, where sunlight slanted through narrow apertures to illuminate carved walls, initiates didn't just read hieroglyphs, they experienced them. The Ankh, that elegant looped cross we often associate with life, held deeper strata of meaning. To the adept, its shape mapped the Nile's annual flood cycle, the union of masculine and feminine energies, even the trajectory of celestial bodies. This wasn't mere decoration, it was a multidimensional language compressing volumes of knowledge into a single glyph, and the Egyptians weren't alone. Across the Mediterranean, Pythagoreans drew pentagrams not as occult doodles, but as geometric expressions of cosmic harmony, each intersecting line a ratio governing music, anatomy, and planetary motion. The brilliance of these symbols lay in their duality. To outsiders, they appeared as simple religious icons, but to those trained in their nuances, they functioned as a clandestine data network. Consider the Ouroboros, that serpent devouring its tail. While most cultures adopted it as a symbol of cyclical renewal, alchemists like Zosimos of Panopolis embedded a radical secret within its coils, the formula for prima materia, the primal substance believed to underlie all matter. His manuscripts describe the symbol not as philosophy but as literal instruction, a diagram for distilling elemental purity through repetitive refinement. Architecture became the ultimate canvas for this coded dialogue. Gothic cathedrals, ostensibly Christian monuments, teem with pagan and hermetic symbolism. Rose windows align not just to catch sunlight but to mark solstices with precision. The labyrinthine floors of Chartres Cathedral mirror the twisting path of alchemical transformation. Even the humble square and compass of Freemasonry encode celestial geometry. Their angles correspond to the Great Pyramid's proportions, a silent homage to a lineage of builders who understood that sacred spaces could shape consciousness itself. What's often overlooked is how these symbols transcended rivalry and conquest. The same serpent imagery slithers through Mayan temples, Norse myth, and Hindu Kundalini art. The Tree of Life motif connects Kabbalists to Assyrian carvings. This wasn't coincidence, it was a chain of transmission, with each culture adapting the glyphs to cloak their own discoveries. When medieval monks painstakingly copied Arabic alchemical texts, often under threat of persecution, they preserved not just recipes for gold, but a visual Esperanto of universal truth. The lingering question isn't whether these symbols held power, but why their creators guarded them so fiercely. Perhaps some knowledge, like a scalpel in untrained hands, could wound as easily as heal. Or maybe the real secret was always this, that every line, curve, and intersection was never just a symbol but a mirror, reflecting back the seeker's own readiness to see. Beneath the Great Pyramid's towering shadow lies a riddle wrapped in stone, a structure so precisely engineered that even modern laser scans reveal deviations of less than an inch across its entire base. But this isn't just about flawless craftsmanship. The pyramid's shafts align with Orion's belt at a specific epoch. Its chambers amplify sound frequencies known to alter consciousness, and its very shape seems to interact with Earth's electromagnetic field. Were the builders merely honoring pharaohs, or were they constructing something far more audacious? Step inside Chartres Cathedral, and you'll find the same enigma dressed in Christian symbolism. Its labyrinthine floor mirrors the path of spiritual transformation, while stained glass windows filter sunlight to mark solstices with razor-sharp accuracy. The architects, often anonymous stonemasons linked to proto-Masonic guilds, didn't just build upward, they encoded celestial mathematics into every arch and pillar. When sunlight strikes a certain carving at noon on the summer solstice, it unveils a hidden alchemical symbol, coincidence or proof of a tradition that treated architecture as a living language. The most tantalizing clues lie beneath these structures. Hidden chambers snake beneath pyramids from Giza to Teotihuacan, some emitting strange electromagnetic anomalies. Beneath Rome's Pantheon, a temple famed for its oculus that tracks celestial movements, lies a network of tunnels where initiates may have conducted sound-based rituals. Even Göbekli Tepe, humanity's oldest known temple, was deliberately buried with thousands of tons of rubble, as if sealing away knowledge too potent for the uninitiated. What unites these sites across time and continents? A shared understanding that buildings could be more than shelters, they could be interfaces. Whether harnessing Earth's energies, aligning with cosmic cycles, or preserving acoustics for ritual trance states, the ancients treated architecture as a fusion of science and spirituality. While we debate their purpose, the stones whisper a persistent truth. Some messages aren't meant to be read but experienced. Now, the trail leads deeper into subterranean labyrinths where light never reaches, and where the architect's final secrets may still lie undisturbed. Beneath the windswept plains of Cappadocia, where fairy chimneys pierce the sky, an entire civilization thrived where no light could reach, not on the earth, but in it. Derinkuyu's subterranean city plunges 18 stories deep, its labyrinthine tunnels connecting homes, stables, even wineries enough to shelter 20,000 people for months. But here's the mystery: who needed such a vast hidden world? The conventional answer points to invasions, yet the architecture tells a stranger tale. Circular stone doors weighing half a ton could seal entire sections from the inside, while narrow ventilation shafts doubled as communication conduits, carrying whispers between levels. This wasn't just a refuge, it was a meticulously designed ecosystem for living in secrecy. Rome's catacombs reveal a different kind of underground network. While Christians famously hid there during persecutions, the tunnels also hosted clandestine gatherings of Mithraic cults, their vaulted chambers adorned with fading frescoes of bull sacrifices. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. To enter these spaces was to descend into the underworld itself, emerging reborn. Modern archaeologists still uncover hidden niches where initiates might have stored sacred texts or ritual objects, suggesting these tunnels served as both sanctuary and school. Fast forward to today, and the fascination hasn't faded. Beneath Washington, D.C., rumors swirl about tunnels connecting Capitol Hill to private bunkers, while the Vatican's necropolis, the Scavi, guards tombs so sensitive that excavation requests require papal approval. The practical uses are undeniable, but the psychological weight runs deeper. Across cultures, descending underground has symbolized the ultimate trial, facing the unknown and returning transformed. From Eleusinian Mysteries to Freemasonry's symbolic chamber of reflection, darkness has always been the crucible where secrets are forged. As we climb back into the light, consider this: if these societies shaped history from the shadows, where else might their influence linger? The answer lies not in stone this time, but in something far more fluid: the flow of money itself. In the vaulted halls of medieval Paris, a Templar knight hands a scrap of parchment to a merchant, not a promissory note, but something far more revolutionary, a promise. With this single slip, wealth could move across continents without a single coin changing hands. The Templars didn't just guard pilgrims, they built the first international banking system, their network of fortresses doubling as vaults for Europe's crowns. Their genius lay in realizing that true power wasn't in gold but in trust, a currency they minted through sacred oaths and ruthless efficiency. Yet by the 14th century, their success became their death warrant. Philip IV of France, drowning in debt to the order, unleashed a smear campaign so vicious it still echoes today. Accusations of heresy and black magic masked a simpler truth: the Templars had grown too powerful precisely because they'd made money portable. Their coded ledgers and encrypted letters functioned like a medieval blockchain, untethered from any monarch's control. When the last Grand Master burned at the stake, his final curse, that Philip would join him within a year, came true with eerie timing, as if the universe itself balanced their ledgers. Meanwhile, in the Baltic's icy ports, another shadow economy thrived. The Hanseatic League, a coalition of German merchants, operated like a corporate empire long before the term existed. Their contour trading posts from London to Novgorod enforced standardized weights, settled disputes privately, and even waged economic warfare by embargoing entire cities. Unlike the Templars' spiritual veneer, the Hansa embraced pragmatism. Their secret wasn't mysticism but information. By controlling trade routes and market data, they could manipulate prices across Europe, a medieval version of insider trading. The Renaissance exposed the dance between wealth and esotericism even further. When the Medici Bank funded Florence's artistic explosion, their ledgers hid more than financial transactions. Botticelli's Primavera and Michelangelo's David weren't just masterpieces. They were vessels for Neoplatonic and Hermetic ideas, paid for by bankers who dabbled in alchemy. A single fresco might encode interest rates in zodiac symbols or hide alchemical formulas in drapery folds, proof that art and finance shared the same clandestine language. The uncomfortable truth these societies reveal isn't just about greed or spirituality, but about systems. Whether through Templar promissory notes or Medici patronage, they grasped a radical idea: money, like mysticism, is ultimately a story we agree to believe. And the most enduring power lies not in hoarding gold, but in controlling the narrative itself. At first glance, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man appears to be a simple study of human proportions, but look closer, and the drawing transforms into a hermetic manifesto in ink. The figure's outstretched limbs don't just align with anatomical ideals. They trace the sacred geometry of the cosmos, echoing Plato's Timaeus and the Kabbalistic tree of life. His circle and square aren't just artistic tools, they're alchemical symbols for the union of spirit and matter, a visual incantation of the ancient maxim, as above, so below. And Leonardo wasn't working in isolation. His notebooks brim with cryptic mirror writing, designs for perpetual motion machines, and anatomical sketches that suggest he accessed knowledge far beyond Renaissance science. Sandro Botticelli's Primavera takes the subterfuge further. On the surface, it's a lush celebration of spring, yet every flower, gesture, and celestial alignment hides a Neoplatonic initiation manual. The three Graces' interlocking hands encode Pythagoras' musical ratios, while Mercury's caduceus points not just to mythology but to hermetic wisdom about ascending through planetary spheres. Even the oranges glowing in the canopy aren't mere decoration. They mirror Medici heraldry, nodding to the banking dynasty's clandestine patronage of esoteric art. The Vatican's reaction to these works speaks volumes. While publicly commissioning religious masterpieces, the papacy quietly purged manuscripts and artworks containing dangerous symbolism. Raphael's School of Athens, painted for Pope Julius Roman II, somehow slipped through. Its central figures Plato and Aristotle are flanked by hidden portraits of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, while a brooding Heraclitus modeled after Michelangelo scribbles notes on the philosopher's stone. This wasn't just artistic flair, it was a silent rebellion, embedding banned ideas where only the initiated would recognize them. What's often overlooked is how these visual codes bridged art and science. When Da Vinci painted The Last Supper, he didn't just arrange apostles dramatically. He positioned them in geometric clusters corresponding to zodiacal constellations, turning the table into an astrological clock. Botticelli's Birth of Venus conceals the Fibonacci sequence in the shell spirals, centuries before mathematicians formalized the pattern. These weren't random choices, they were signatures of a brotherhood that saw no divide between creativity and cryptography. The legacy of this visual language still pulses through modern culture, from the Masonic symbols on dollar bills to the surrealist occultism of Dolly. But the Renaissance masters set the blueprint. When words are too dangerous, speak through brushstrokes. And as we'll soon discover, their literary counterparts took this game of shadows to even more daring heights. Beneath the crumbling leather cover of the Voynich Manuscript lies a puzzle that has defied cryptographers for 6 centuries, a book written in no known alphabet, filled with illustrations of plants that don't exist and celestial charts that map no recognizable sky. Carbon dated to the early 15th century, its vellum pages resist every decoding attempt, from wartime codebreakers to artificial intelligence. Some dismiss it as an elaborate Renaissance forgery, but the precision of its ink and parchment tells a different story. The repeating word patterns suggest genuine language structure, while its herbal section depicts flora with anatomical accuracy, roots, veins, and seed pods rendered in meticulous detail. Could this be a pharmacopoeia for forgotten medicines, a botanical journal from a parallel exploration, or something far stranger? Then there's the curious case of the Necronomicon, a book born from fiction that took on a life of its own. When H.P. Lovecraft scribbled about this grimoire of forbidden knowledge in the 1920s, he never imagined occultists would later discover copies, weaving his cosmic horror into real ceremonial magic. Manuscripts surfaced in Istanbul and London, their aging pages crammed with Sumerian invocations and diagrams of alien geometries. While scholars dismiss them as modern fabrications, their influence is undeniable. Followers of Aleister Crowley incorporated passages into rituals, and New Age mystics still debate whether the texts channeled genuine esoteric currents, proof that belief, once kindled, can blur the line between invention and revelation. What drives secret societies to produce such labyrinthine texts? The answer may lie in the very nature of writing itself. Oral traditions demand living custodians, vulnerable to time and persecution. But a coded book can wait patient as a seed in desert soil for generations until someone deciphers its symbology. The Rosicrucians mastered this art during Europe's religious wars, scattering manifestos like the Fama Fraternitatis with deliberate obscurity. To the uninitiated, they read as pious allegories. To fellow seekers, they offered coordinates to hidden sanctuaries. This dance between concealment and revelation continues today. Contemporary esoteric orders still publish reserved texts. Their print runs deliberately limited to maintain exclusivity. Others leverage digital encryption, embedding teachings in blockchain ledgers or AI-generated poetry. The medium evolves, but the principle remains. Knowledge guarded too loosely loses its power, while knowledge locked away too tightly becomes mere artifact. As we turn to modern revivals of ancient groups, ask yourself, what might future seekers uncover in the fragments we leave behind? Will our own coded messages, whether in ink or algorithms, spark the next renaissance of hidden wisdom? The flicker of candlelight in a London townhouse, 1988. A robed figure traces an inverted pentagram in the air, reciting incantations from a grimoire supposedly older than the pyramids. This wasn't ancient Egypt or medieval Europe, but the birth cry of modern occultism. Groups like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn didn't just imitate secret societies of old. They re-engineered them for the industrial age, stitching together fragments of Kabbalah, Egyptian mythology, and Renaissance alchemy into something entirely new. Their genius wasn't in preserving tradition, but in repackaging it. Take Aleister Crowley's The Lemma, a spiritual system that claimed inspiration from the same Egyptian mysteries we've explored earlier. On the surface, Crowley's rituals echoed temple rites from the age of the pharaohs, invocations of Isis, ceremonial masks, even the iconic Stele of Revealing that supposedly channeled an entity named Aiwass. But peel back the layers and you'll find a startling innovation. Crowley didn't just copy hieroglyphs, he built a self-help empire disguised as occultism. His infamous maxim, "Do what thou wilt," wasn't mere hedonism. It was a radical merger of Victorian individualism and ancient deity worship. Meanwhile, in the forests of Britain, another revival was underway. Modern Druids, armed with medieval Irish manuscripts and a dash of romantic nationalism, reconstructed rituals under ancient oaks. Their mistletoe ceremonies and solstice gatherings borrowed heavily from Roman accounts of Celtic priests, but with a critical twist. Where historical Druids guarded knowledge through oral tradition, their contemporary counterparts published guidebooks and hosted public ceremonies. This raises a fascinating paradox. Can a secret society still call itself secret when its rituals stream on YouTube? The answer lies in what anthropologists call invented tradition. When Gerald Gardner founded Wicca in the 1950s, he blended Masonic lodge structure with folk magic, creating a spirituality that felt timeless yet fit neatly into modern life. His Book of Shadows, part grimoire, part DIY manual, allowed initiates to practice alone or in covens, a flexibility ancient mystery schools never imagined. What unites these movements isn't historical purity, but something far more pragmatic: the art of selective nostalgia. The Golden Dawn borrowed Egyptian iconography but discarded theocracy. Neo-Druids embraced nature worship while sidelining the historical Druids' political power. Wicca kept the moon rituals but ditched the blood oaths. In every case, these groups did what all enduring secret societies ultimately master: they evolved. The real lesson here isn't about authenticity, but survival. Just as the Renaissance alchemists translated ancient texts into the language of their time, modern esoteric movements reframe old wisdom for new anxieties. Whether that's Crowley selling spiritual liberation to the suffragette era or Wicca offering eco-feminism to the atomic age, the pattern holds. Secrets don't disappear, they simply change costumes. And as we'll soon see, some of those costumes now come with blockchain encryption and VR headset. Deep in the caves of Languedoc, as flames consumed the last Cathar Perfecti in the 13th century, a whisper passed between the survivors, not of surrender but of transformation. The Albigensian Crusade had declared these Gnostic Christians extinct, yet their teachings didn't vanish. They went subterranean, resurfacing in the troubadour poetry of Provence, the hidden symbology of tarot cards, even the vaults of later Rosicrucian texts. This wasn't just survival, it was metamorphosis. The pattern repeats with eerie consistency. When Bavaria banned the Illuminati in 1787, Adam Weishaupt's order didn't crumble, it fragmented. Some members allegedly infiltrated Masonic lodges, while others seeded revolutionary ideas in Parisian salons. Documents like the original writings of the order suggest deliberate dispersion, with cells instructed to operate independently, communicating through ciphered newspapers and allegorical literature. Modern scholars debate their continuance, but the blueprint remains undeniable. When persecution strikes, the smartest societies don't resist, they dissolve and reassemble elsewhere. Freemasonry mastered this dance of visibility and discretion. After the anti-Masonic hysteria of the 19th century, sparked by the mysterious disappearance of William Morgan lodges pivoted from esoteric rituals to public philanthropy. Charity balls and scholarship funds became their new camouflage, yet behind closed doors the old degrees endured. This two-tiered approach reveals a brutal truth. Survival often requires sacrificing mystique for mainstream acceptance. More shadowy groups chose infiltration over adaptation. The medieval assassins, though decimated by Mongol invasions, allegedly seeded their tactics into European intelligence networks. Their signature move, using political alliances to manipulate rivals, mirrors modern spycraft so closely that Cold War operatives studied their methods. When a society's ethos becomes indistinguishable from statecraft, eradication grows impossible. The real question isn't whether these groups survived, but how they shape-shifted into the modern era. From Templar banking systems echoing in offshore finance to Kabbalistic numerology resurfacing in algorithmic trading, their legacies aren't locked in history books, they're active blueprints. Power, it seems, prefers to wear many masks. There's a moment in history when whispers in secret chambers ripple outward until they shake empires. But separating fact from paranoid fantasy requires walking a razor's edge. Take the Bavarian Illuminati, officially disbanded in 1787 after just 12 years, yet their specter haunts every conspiracy theory from the French Revolution to modern pop culture. Founded by Adam Weishaupt, a law professor disillusioned with church influence, the group's actual agenda was startlingly mundane, advancing Enlightenment ideals through discreet debate. Their real power wasn't in puppet strings, but in persuasion. By infiltrating Masonic lodges and aristocratic salons, they didn't control events. They simply nudged conversations toward secular governance and scientific progress. Now cross the Atlantic to the tomb like halls of Yale's Skull and Bones. Since 1832, this elite society has counted U.S. presidents, CIA directors, and titans of industry among its members. The initiation rituals allegedly involving confessing sexual secrets and kissing a skull sound like fodder for thrillers. Yet the group's true influence lies in something far less cinematic: access. When bonesmen like George H.W. Bush and John Kerry faced off in the 2004 election, it wasn't proof of a shadow government, just an Ivy League networking pipeline turbocharged by myth. Then there's Opus Dei, the Catholic organization Dan Brown made infamous. Unlike fictional depictions, their real sway comes from spiritual discipline, not assassinations. By embedding members in key Vatican roles and encouraging austere practices like self-flagellation, they've shaped church policy on contraception and education quietly, persistently, without a single dagger drawn. What ties these groups together isn't some grand conspiracy, but a shared understanding of how secrecy amplifies influence. Declassified Cold War files reveal even the CIA exploited this dynamic. Project MK Ultra didn't just test LSD on unwitting subjects. It pilfered techniques from occult traditions, using sensory deprivation and ritualistic conditioning to break and rebuild minds. The goal wasn't satanic, it was pragmatic. Secrecy, whether in a Masonic lodge or a Langley lab, creates psychological leverage. Those outside the circle overestimate its power, while insiders gain confidence from perceived exclusivity. The most revealing case study might be modern Silicon Valley. Tech titans host exclusive retreats like Bilderberg or the Summit series, where billionaires discuss AI ethics under Chatham House rules. No blood oaths are exchanged, yet the effect mirrors ancient mystery schools. Decisions that shape global digital infrastructure emerge from conversations the public never hears. This isn't about proving whether secret societies rule the world. It's about recognizing how human psychology bends toward the arcane. From Illuminati pamphlets shaping revolutionary thought to algorithms dictating social media feeds, the mechanism remains the same. Influence thrives where light refuses to shine. The greatest trick these groups ever pulled, convincing us their power was supernatural when in reality, it was just human nature refined to perfection. The psychological grip of Shadowy figures something deep in the human psyche, thrills at the idea of hidden architects pulling society's strings. Whether it's the Illuminati's supposed control of global finance or the Templars guarding lost relics, these narratives tap into a primal instinct, our hardwired need to make sense of chaos by spotting patterns even where none exist. A tale as old as tribes long before the Da Vinci Code had us questioning Louvre symbols. Ancient cultures attributed droughts, plagues, and political upheavals to unseen forces, gods, witches, or clandestine brotherhoods. This instinct isn't irrational, it's evolutionary. Early humans who suspected predators or rival tribes lurking in the shadows survived longer than those who dismissed rustling grass as the wind. Fast forward to today, and that same hypervigilance morphs into conspiracy theories. The brain's obsession with hidden agency is so strong that studies show even random data, when presented suggestively, can convince people of elaborate plots. The alchemy of fact and fiction. Secret societies thrive in the murky space between documented history and tantalizing gaps. Take Freemasonry. Its real influence on Enlightenment ideals is undeniable, yet its rituals borrow heavily from medieval stonemason guilds and esoteric traditions. This ambiguity is strategic. By blending verifiable facts like Masonic involvement in founding democracies with cryptic symbolism, these groups become raw shach tests. Believers see proof everywhere, skeptics dismiss it as coincidence. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, but nuance rarely fuels legend. The myth-making machine cognitive biases act as accelerants for these stories. The Barnum effect, where vague statements feel deeply personal, explains why tarot readers and conspiracy gurus both flourish. When QAnon claims secret elites run the world, it's the modern echo of Renaissance witch hunts or McCarthyism repackaged for the digital age. Meanwhile, pop culture turbocharges the cycle. Dan Brown didn't invent Templar mysteries. He weaponized their aura of authenticity, leaving readers wondering how much was based on truth. The paradox of power and paranoia. What's fascinating isn't just that we believe, but how we believe. Secret societies are simultaneously vilified as corrupt cabals and romanticized as keepers of forbidden wisdom. This duality reveals our conflicted relationship with power. We distrust hierarchies yet crave the certainty they represent. It's no accident that during crises, economic crashes, pandemics, conspiracy theories surge. When the world feels unstable, a shadowy puppet master offers a perverse comfort. At least someone is in control. From folklore to algorithms, today's viral myths operate like digital mystery cults. Anonymous forums replace initiation chambers, and cryptic memes serve as coded scrolls. Yet the psychology remains unchanged. Whether it's 14th century whispers about poisoners causing the Black Death or contemporary claims about deep state operatives, the narrative template persists. Identify the unseen enemy, gather the clues, and feel the rush of knowing what others dismiss. The deeper question isn't whether secret societies shape history, but why we're so desperate to believe they do. Perhaps the real hidden hand has always been our own, reaching for patterns in the dark, trying to stitch meaning into the unknown. Secret societies in pop culture, myths, money, and moral dilemmas, a sunlit library in national treasure. Nicolas Cage's character feverishly deciphers coded clues on the back of the Declaration of Independence, unraveling a Templar conspiracy that stretches from medieval Europe to modern Washington. It's thrilling, it's absurd, and it's utterly irresistible. Hollywood has turned shadowy brotherhoods into blockbuster gold, spinning their mystique into treasure hunts, dystopian power struggles, and globe-trotting adventures. But behind the explosions and cryptic symbols lies a deeper question. When fiction borrows from history, does it distort or reveal the truth? Video games like Assassin's Creed take the fantasy further, letting players leap through Renaissance rooftops as hooded initiates locked in an ancient war between Templars and Assassins. The series painstakingly recreates historical settings, Florence's Duomo, Constantinople's bazaars, yet fills them with fictionalized versions of real secret societies. It's a clever illusion. By grounding fantasy in real architecture and events, the game blurs the line between conspiracy theory and playable lore, but the impact isn't confined to screens. Modern occult movements have drawn surprising inspiration from these fictional portrayals. After the Da Vinci Code exploded onto bestseller lists, interest in the Priory of Sion, a real but largely debunked French myth, surged. People enrolled in Gnostic study groups convinced Brown's thriller held kernels of truth. Even Freemasonry saw a spike in membership inquiries, not because of historical curiosity, but because audiences wanted to step into their own real-life mystery novel. The ethical dilemma is clear. Does glamorizing secrecy trivialize its real-world consequences? For every Indiana Jones fan thrilled by the hunt for arcane relics, there's a darker counterpart, a conspiracy theorist weaving elaborate narratives from Hollywood plotlines. The same tropes that make for gripping entertainment can fuel dangerous paranoia, twisting harmless symbols into supposed proof of shadowy cabals. Yet pop culture isn't purely reckless. Sometimes it acts as a gateway. A teenager obsessed with Assassin's Creed might dig into the actual history of the Hashishin, discovering their complex role in medieval politics. A viewer enchanted by the Ninth Gate could stumble upon genuine Hermetic texts, sparking a lifelong fascination with esoteric philosophy. As the credits roll on our exploration of secret societies, one truth lingers. Whether whispered in torchlit chambers or projected onto IMAX screens, humanity's obsession with hidden knowledge endures. The real mystery isn't just what these groups knew, but why we keep resurrecting them in every era through every medium. Perhaps because the greatest secret of all is this: the stories we tell about the past say more about us than the shadows we chase. After centuries of exploring hidden chambers and deciphering cryptic symbols, one revelation cuts through the fog of mystery. The greatest secret isn't what these societies knew, but who they knew. Scrolls crumble, temples fall, but the invisible threads connecting minds across generations, those never fully unravel. Think about it. A medieval alchemist's formula might fade, but the network of patrons, scribes, and apprentices that carried it forward. That's where true power resided. History's most enduring mysteries aren't locked in vaults or carved in stone. They're etched into the unrecorded conversations between scholars and rulers, the midnight meetings where alliances were forged without a single parchment being signed. The Templars didn't just guard relics, they mastered the art of diplomatic leverage. The Illuminati's real weapon wasn't their manifesto, but their ability to place members in the right salons and universities. Even today, the most influential networks operate on this same principle. It's not what you know, but who trusts you with the knowing. Yet here's the twist: these societies also held up a mirror to civilization's deepest anxieties. When people whisper about shadowy elites pulling strings, they're grappling with a fundamental discomfort. How much of our world is shaped by forces we'll never see? The irony is that many secret groups were far less powerful than legends suggest, but their mythology itself became a tool. Kings demonized the Templars to seize their wealth. Revolutionaries invoked the Illuminati to stoke paranoia about the old regime. The real conspiracy: how easily fear of hidden hands can be weaponized. So where does that leave us now? Look around. From Silicon Valley's invitation-only retreats to closed-door policy forums, the architecture of influence hasn't disappeared. It's just traded hooded robes for tailored suits. The digital age didn't erase secrecy, it digitized it. Encrypted chats, algorithmic biases, even viral misinformation, all are modern echoes of the old games of control and access. As the screen fades, remember this: history's greatest untold story isn't about lost treasures or forbidden texts. It's about the choices we make when we believe no one's watching. The real mystery isn't who held secrets in the past, but what we'll do with the ones we keep today. If this journey through the shadows left you questioning the stories behind the stories, hit that subscribe button. More uncharted history awaits, and your theories, they might just unravel the next thread. Drop them below, and let's keep the conversation alive. Before you click away, let's talk about the one clue historians keep overlooking. Scattered across the ruins of ancient empires, etched into temple walls, stamped on royal seals, and woven into medieval tapestries, there's a symbol that defies time and geography: the double-headed eagle. The Hittites carved it into stone 3,000 years ago. Byzantine emperors emblazoned it on their banners. The Knights Templar adopted it in secret ceremonies, and centuries later, it appeared in Masonic lodges. Here's the mystery: why would civilizations separated by millennia and continents all fixate on the same enigmatic emblem? Some scholars dismiss it as coincidence, a simple case of artistic borrowing. But look closer. For the Hittites, it represented dominion over East and West. The Byzantines saw it as the fusion of sacred and secular power. To the Templars, it was a cipher for duality: good and evil, light and shadow. And for modern Freemasons, a reminder that true wisdom requires seeing both past and future at once. Theories swirl. Could this bird, with its two piercing gazes, be evidence of a long-lost network, an ancient web of knowledge stretching from Anatolia to Scotland? Or is it something deeper, a primal archetype encoded into humanity's collective unconscious? Here's where you come in. Grab your digital shovel and dig. Trace the eagle's path across history through alchemical manuscripts, forgotten cartouches, even the insignias of modern intelligence agencies. Then drop your wildest discoveries in the comments. Did you uncover a link no textbook mentions, a hidden meaning lurking in plain sight? And if this kind of rabbit hole excites you, don't let the trail go cold. Tap that subscribe button and ring the bell because the next video reveals a shadowy group so bold they never bothered to hide. Their symbols glare at us from city streets, their rituals unfold in broad daylight, and their influence, well, let's just say some secrets thrive when nobody thinks to look. Your turn. The eagle's watching. Where will its wings take you next?